Welcome. Today, we're going to talk about this $40,000 grant available in the state of California through CalHFA. And everybody's asking a lot of good questions in the comments whenever I post about this. I've got the best possible guest. Molly Ellis has been doing training at CalHFA since the 90s. And so if anybody could set me straight, it's going to be Molly. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure. And since the 98, so can I at least make it the late 90s so I'm not quite as old?
Sorry. I like being impressive with the experience.
Okay.
You started when you were 12, right? It's okay.
Right,
it's okay.
Exactly.
Molly, in a nutshell, can you summarize, like, what is this grant and who's it for?
CalHFA was fortunate enough to be able to develop this amazing new program. It's unlike anything that we've done in our history, which I know a lot about, wink, wink. It's a great program. It is for a current homeowner who is financing a project to build an ADU on their owner-occupied property.
Perfect. If you're an owner occupant at the time that you're applying for the grant, right? It's not like a deed restriction for like 20 years or something.
Nope. At the time, if you live there while you're building the ADU and you intend to continue to live there, but it's not you're certifying that it is an owner-occupied property.
Yeah, that's who it's for, right? So if you're an institutional investor, don't do this.
Right. And that's really the point. So if you're looking into this grant because you're an investor and you have a property that you're building an ADU on, good. That's amazing that you're doing that, but this program isn't for you.
Yep, clear. There's also a little bit of distinction. So do you have to be the person on the deed of the home or the property?
Yes, you do. So you have to be the owner occupant. So you have to be the person that owns the property. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And as a borrower, sometimes the lenders say like, oh, it's not when we talk about income limits later, yeah. People say, oh, it's borrower income versus household income. Like I own this house with my wife. Could just one of us apply for the loan and grant, or do we have to apply together?
Well, it's not you don't have to, you can do it either way. What it boils down to is CalHFA is going to use, and we might get into this a little bit more, but I want to kind of set the stage for this a tiny bit. So a couple of things that we're talking about: income limits, first of all. So we're definitely going to talk about that in a little bit. And then the way the grant works is it goes in conjunction with your construction loan or your renovation loan or whatever financing mechanism that you're using to build the ADU, to actually get the project financed. It goes in conjunction with that. So another thing is if you don't need financing, good for you, but unfortunately the program won't work for you in that circumstance either. But it is tied to the construction financing. So circling back around to our original question, we're going to use whatever the lender is that you are going to go to get your construction financing. They're going to determine whether or not you're qualified for that construction piece, right? Or the renovation piece, that part of the loan. Sometimes it means a total refi, sometimes it doesn't. But whatever that mechanism is that you're using to finance your project, CalHFA is only going to use what the lender uses to qualify you for the mortgage. So back to your scenario, Ryan, if you and your wife are going on the loan and both being qualified for the construction loan, then yes, we would use both. If only one of you were, then we would only use the one.
And that's kind of going to be a common theme where to get this $40,000 grant, which is like, I don't have to pay it back, I got to get a loan, a construction type or renovation type loan.
Right.
And some of the limits are on the grant, like owner occupancy. That's a requirement for CalHFA. Right. And then some of the requirements are going to come from the lender and the specific loan product that I'm looking at.
Exactly. That was a perfect way to put it. Yes.
Okay. All right. So with that in mind, the requirements from CalHFA, I'll rattle through the ones I think I know. How about that? It's got to be a construction or renovation type loan that comes with like an account where the lender is giving me money as I complete steps.
Right. It has to have a managed construction type escrow. And the reason we throw in, and thank you for picking up on that too, the reason we say renovation type or construction type is because we don't want to label any of it, because lenders call their products all different names and types. And so what we're after is that construction escrow. We cannot, you as the consumer, those of you who are watching this video right now, we are not going to hand you $40,000. I'm sorry, that's just not the way it works. We will, however, if you are eligible for the program, put $40,000 in with your other financing to make your project whole. In other words, if you have a $200,000 ADU you're building, you get, your lender funds $60,000 into your construction escrow. You're eligible for our part. We put our $40,000 in. You have $200,000 to fund your project. That's how it's going to work.
Very cool. Very cool. And then it has to be one of the lenders on the CalHFA website.
Yes. Right now, yeah, check this out, y'all. It's calhfa.ca.gov. If you click under home buyers, click on the ADU grant program, and there is a list. I think I have about 13 right now. I have 2 more that are coming up very soon. And then we have just now, this is breaking news. I wish I could make the, is that it?
We'll
Yeah.
put it in.
Your commentator is Basil Rysdale.
Breaking news, we are opening it up to other like cities, counties, redevelopment agencies, other ADU programs. So not necessarily lenders, but programs that you might be able to use to kind of leverage and use their types of financing along with, and get the grant too. So I don't have any yet, so I don't have that much breaking news, but we did just open it up. I have a couple applications in that I'm working on finalizing. And so those, it should be up here before too long, but yeah, keep an eye out for that. If the traditional lending option isn't working for you, keep an eye on the website, because we're trying to expand this as much as we can.
That's super exciting. So what that would look like is, one of these local or regional programs a lot of the time that help people finance housing with different means than a traditional mortgage or lending product.
Exactly.
You're going to have an application process for them to become approved distributors of this grant.
Exactly.
Okay. And it would work the same way.
Say, I feel bad. We're just going to say it, but I don't want to put, well, maybe I do want to put a little pressure on them. No, I'm just kidding. Like no pressure, but I think one of your videos was on Redwood Credit Union. We're super stoked. We hope, we don't have an app yet, but we're hoping that entities like that will reach out and participate with us in the program as well.
That's it. Everybody send furious emails to Sean. No.
Well,
but it's really, this is on a more serious note, it's like, sometimes people want to make a big difference. Mm-hmm. We're at the early stages of programs like this grant, right? And so 19 people have reserved the grant. Right. There is enough money in there for thousands of ADUs, right? I think.
25 initial funding source is 2,500. We have the money to build 2,500 ADUs right now. If
we just let things kind of trickle, then programs are slow. Lenders have priorities that they're trying to take care of. But if 20 people show up at the door tomorrow, that's twice as many as have actually been able to get the grant. That's a good thing. Yes. And so if you're watching this and you're like, I don't know, you just talk to your lender, show them this video. We'll put the link to the application stuff in the description below, and I'll keep it up to date for the next several months. And like, it's a really big deal. So that's my PSA. You can make it different. I love it. And then I'm still kind of going through, we already said owner occupied. Yep. Another one is income requirements. And this is a lot of publicity happened last September when the grant first launched, and there were different income requirements back then. Right. So and actually, I'm kind of just surprised by how high moderate income is in some counties. So like, what are the income requirements today? And I'm sorry, I'm cheating. I started to not look because I was looking at my other screen because I knew that is where we were going to go. And even if you didn't go there, I wanted to make sure that I had a couple of examples. And for that very reason, because when many people hear low to moderate income,
they just automatically assume this program is for a really low income homeowner, and it's just not. CalHFA has gone to great lengths to make sure that our low to moderate income definition is applicable to Californians. As you all may know, that many of these limits come from the feds. So if you look at the nation as a whole, it's very difficult to compare, middle America, say, with California. Income, cost of living is way more, cost of housing is way more, which is why we're doing this, right? That's why we're all here. So it is very generous. I like to say it's based on the median income for California in individual counties, and even California itself is very diverse. There are some counties that have a lower income limit because their median income is lower in those counties. But we are at, it's a pretty exact science. Or math. It's 150% of the AMI. So for example, I forgot, Ryan, where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Napa County.
Napa County, that's right. Shoot, I did know that. Okay,
You're
so
good.
Napa County, for example, the limit there, the income limit there is $216,000 annually. So not to pick on you, but you brought it up for your wife and yourself. If you're both going on the loan, your income would just have to be under $216,000, which is it's a moderate income homeowner. Now that's high because Napa's high, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of got to put it into perspective. And just to give our listeners another idea, let's say LA County. It's just because it's so big.
Sure.
LA County is 158,000 is the income limit for
a lot
LA.
of viewers from LA County, so it's good that you did that.
Yeah.
I think the other one is honestly even the lowest, the strictest counties. So if you take something like Butte, or what's the number? It's
139. I think 139 is the floor. That's the lowest our income limits go.
Yeah. So as even in the floor counties, the strictest,
the most affordable. Limit. Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That's the limit. And
so it's still generous.
I really encourage people, that link will be below the video too, to just check out what your county is. Don't assume, and then talk to the lender too, because there are ways to structure things and make sure that it's possible or not before you set out on this project. Right.
Yeah, and you know what? Around the income limits, I have more breaking news. Holy smokes! Good timing on this, Ryan. So I can't say much, and I can't talk in exacts. But since we talked about specific limits, and this will be out there in YouTube land for a length of time, I just want you to know that the limits that I quoted you today are from June 1st, 2021. Wink, wink. Right?
That's
so
it. We're filming
Ryan,
on
again,
May 31st,
you'll update
everybody.
that, right? Yeah, so Ryan will update those links, or the link will be there, so it will automatically update. So this is one of those times, and we're definitely saying don't listen to our words. Click down in the bottom because these may have changed by the time you're viewing this.
Yep. And so that's my list of requirements. Did I miss anything vital that you want to talk about?
No, I think you nailed it.
So when that's what you got to have in your head, just as a precursor, but then you're probably gonna, because like we said, we got to go through one of these lenders. Right. So you probably want to start the conversation with one of them and see, which lenders are right for you and what kind of products they're offering and where you'll land.
Yep.
But before we get too far into that, I think like a lot of people go like, why are you even going through a lender? Why is this set up the way it is? Molly, could you explain broadly like what CalHFA is and how it differs from FHA, which people confuse a lot, and like you guys have a role with? Like, teach me.
All right. So CalHFA, Housing Finance Agency, is a local state agency, government agency. So I work for the state of California. That is, we are a state agency. However, our programs are offered through a network of our approved lenders. So ADU specific lenders, where we mentioned, that's where you need to go to have access to this program. The FHA, which we are commonly mistaken as, is the Federal Housing Administration, and they are a federal government agency that offers insurance, mortgage insurance on a product type for homeownership, for there's even a 203k. So for those of you out there that it doesn't work for a standalone ADU, but it could work for a junior ADU. If you were doing that, that could be a product that you could do. So although our programs work, and I want to add one more thing, and then I'll come back and kind of put a little bow on it. This is my night job. This is not my day job. The ADU world and homeowners, and having a product for existing homeowners is not what CalHFA typically does. We offer down payment and closing cost assistance for first-time home buyers. So that's my day job, right? That is my normal. And I'm just kidding. I don't really only work on them separate. That was just a very elaborate joke. So so our normal business for single family of CalHFA is down payment and closing cost assistance. But we're filling this need to help generate, to help spark, if you will, to help try to get some added housing stock out there in the world. And this whole area around ADU is just, it's big and it's exciting and it's not going to go away.
Oh, you can preach into the choir.
Yeah.
So to put that in another context, and you just tell me if I'm wrong, right? But it's like CalHFA already has this network of lenders that offers your mortgage products.
Right. So when we started to develop this program, we needed the quickest, easiest way to get it out onto the street, right? So that's why I was talking a little bit about phase 2. If I called it that, that's what we call it in-house. But when the quickest, easiest way we could get this money on the street was to go through our vetted, tried and true. We've been working with these lenders with construction renovation type products. So that's who we offered it to first, so we could get it out as soon as possible. And then now we're going out to some of the alternative ways that financing can happen for your ADU. And that's what this is. And this is a moving target. So again, if you guys don't see something that works for you now, keep checking back. I do have a lender that has a second mortgage product. I'm talking to a lot of people that don't want to refinance their first because they have a really great loan on the first. And that is absolutely, you as the consumer need to do what is best for you and for your family. If that means you're not in a position to refinance your first to build this ADU, then that's fine. It's just that it doesn't work with CalHFA. You have to make those decisions for your family first and foremost. And then if the grant works, then we're happy to come to the table.
And so that's a great example of what we were talking about before. CalHFA isn't saying, hey, you got to refinance in order to get this grant money. CalHFA is saying you got to go through one of our lenders. And then the lenders, they're running businesses. And so they're like, well, some of the products we have available do require a refinance.
Yeah,
and
the majority of them do right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that goes back to have this conversation with your lenders, because what's happened is enough people have talked to lenders, talked to Molly, talked to you, right? And then everybody realizes, oh, there's actually a profitable loan product for the lender that would help a lot of people if it took a second, and they just need to secure it. They need to figure out how do we do a second, because they're used to working with people who need down payment assistance, with CalHFA, and actually they're bending their logic a little bit. Oh, we could do a loan that takes a second if you have 35% equity in your house or whatever.
Right. And to be totally honest, when we first started developing this program, we live in second and third lien tariff. That's where we live for our down payment for my day job, right? That's what we do, is down payment and closing cost assistance in the form of seconds and thirds. So I really thought that was out there. Come to find out, it wasn't. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when we first launched this, nobody had a second mortgage product, but necessity is the mother of all invention, right? So I have heard more and more lenders talking about it. We know Redwood has one. We have another lender that has one. So yeah, I do believe that it is, it's starting, and it's up to them. I can't make them do a second mortgage, right? So many people are like, why can't you let them give, just give me the $40,000 and, make them give me a second. I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, folks.
But you know who has the power to do that pressure? Don't direct it at Molly, direct it at lenders, direct it at local community organizations that could eventually apply once this once the breaking news breaks. Like, that's you can apply pressure. You just got to put it on the right places.
Right.
And this is getting more into like broader topics, but like there was a federal housing action plan that just got released recently, right? And one of the big things that they highlighted is that lending products are regulated because we don't want unregulated lending products. But that's really slowed down the adoption of missing middle housing, because we are specialized in single family homes and big apartment projects. And those two things CalHFA does wonderfully at, and now you're innovating products for this middle part, like ADUs. And so it's a process.
And that really is, and that missing middle, I've heard that more and more over the last, maybe even 5 years of my career. And that's really where those moderate income levels are coming from. Because if we were looking at only a low, quote unquote, low income borrower, then so the help with the low, and the higher end doesn't need the help, right? So that really is what we've been trying to do with not only our down payment and closing cost assistance, but also with this ADU program, for sure, to be able to reach more people.
Very cool. Okay, lots to chew on there. To get back to a nuts and bolts question, people keep asking, so this is a pre-development grant. What is pre-development? What comes before development?
Again, that's what we called it, right? But as I started to talk to lenders and to builders and people like you, people who are more familiar with what's really out there, I also heard another term that I've also stole and I use is soft costs. So basically what we mean by pre-development or soft costs is we mean permits, we mean the soil tests, we mean impact fees, we mean there's all the fees. I'll just say that, all of them, because I know I probably missed some there. All the fees, site prep, like, is there a giant tree where your ADU needs to go? Well, then, maybe you need to remove that tree to put the ADU in. That would be pre-development. It just cannot go to any construction costs. As a state agency, if anything goes to construction, it would trigger prevailing wage. And we're also trying to make this more affordable, right? So we don't want to defeat the purpose. So that's why that restriction is there. So only soft costs, no construction, no labor, no lumber, no nails, no construction, right? Only pre-development, soft costs, site prep, utilities, and only specific, since I threw utilities out there, only specific to the ADU. So like if you have to upgrade the main house utilities to handle the ADU, I can't use the grant for that. But to get the utilities to the ADU, yes, I can do that.
Or to do the electrical engineering report, or to do the whatever.
Yes. If it's specific for the ADU, then we can help with that.
And then another, I assume one of the ways that this gets kind of worked out and enforced is that most of the lenders require a fixed price contract with a general contractor, right? This isn't for owner builders, and it's not for a cost plus model. It's like a contractor gives you a price and says what they're going to do for that price ahead of time. And basically anything in that contractor's price, that's hard costs. And
sometimes they include the soft costs. It just depends. What we're going to ask for from the lender is for them to break it out for us. So this would be less for the consumer to totally worry about. I mean, I know you want to know what's covered, and I'm happy to answer all those questions, but the builder and the lender are going to have like an Excel spreadsheet where they can list out the cost and itemize. That's the word I'm looking for. They can actually itemize the cost. And as soon as I get to 40 grand, which is easy, by the way, then
Unfortunately.
you get to, yeah, unfortunately, but then, we approve it and it moves to the funding stage.
Perfect. So even in a situation where you're working with a design builder instead of like an architect and then a contractor, that design builder might be able to itemize some things as like plans and permit fees, and then other things as hard costs. And you and the lender and the CalHFA, like all three play together and give authorized expenses, and it's all taken care of.
Exactly. And I even encourage, again, because this side of the project, although it's not all of it by any means, it's not the most expensive piece of it, but it can end up being a chunk of your project. So I even encourage our lender partners to, throw an extra fee on there if they're not 100% sure if we're going to cover it. And then that really streamlines the process. So say I don't know what ABC fee is, but I have XYZ that I know what that is, and I know that's eligible. I can just approve the 40 grand and move along. So it is very much it's a common sense process. It really is. I know common sense and state agency don't always play nice together, but I promise it is.
You said it. I'm guiltless here.
Everybody else was thinking about it. I'm just going to call out the animal in the room, but it really is. It really, really is. Common sense approach.
Yeah. So you're looking for ways to give that 40,000 to unlock.
We want to promote the ADUs in California. 100%.
And notably, one of the big changes that you've announced this year is that you can also, let's say you have 5,000 left at the end in the kitty, you can apply all of that to buying down the interest and other non-recurring closing costs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we did that as a quick pivot to the environment. The rates weren't doing the crazy things that they were doing when we originally announced the program in September. So it was a quick pivot. We bumped the loan amount, which we talked about. So we made it a little bit more, and we opened it up to non-recurring, just in case there were folks out there that were, close enough to where a little bit of a buy down on their rate would make it a positive thing for their family to be able to build the ADU and get the grant.
Makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to summarize what we've learned so far. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the broad stuff is, I get a construction or renovation style loan, a loan with an account. That's kind of monitored and controlled by the lender. The lender is then gonna, so when I get that loan, at some point, the lender is then gonna file a bunch of paperwork and give it to CalHFA to get me my $40,000 grant.
It's right around the same time. So I can go into that in a little bit more detail if you want.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay, so the lender's gonna apply to CalHFA, and you saw as we talked about this, right? That it's pretty straightforward. So the lender's gonna know whether or not you're eligible pretty much right out the gate. Once they're ready to draw docs on that loan, they're submitting just before then, and every lender is a little bit different, so I'm just giving a tiny bit of a timeline.
Let me get in there because I'm easily confused. And so let's say I've got my garage, detached garage, and I'm like, I've done some research. I think it's going to be like a couple $100,000. I'm ready to do a lot of things in parallel. I'm ready to talk to lenders, figure out how I'm paying for it. I'm ready to start asking for permits. Like I'll do it. I can do it in any order. What should I do first? Should I start talking to a lender?
It's really whatever you feel comfortable with. If you have the 10 grand or whatever it is, because I don't want to say talk to a lender first, because what if there are people out there watching this video that's already pulled their permits? That's okay too. So if you've already done this, as I think a lot of people do, as you get the funds, you say, okay, I'm going to do my permits. That's okay too. But yes, to see if the financing can work, even with what you've previously done, yes, you need to talk to a lender. You need to get pre-qualified for your construction or renovation type loan. Then you follow their lead, because they're going to help you manage the project too, like to a certain extent as well, right? And then once they're ready to draw docs, pretty much, they're going to submit to us, and it's just 6 things. Like it's very, very easy, including, don't forget, the borrower's affidavit. So I would advise everybody on the call to look over the borrower affidavit, because this is what you're agreeing to. So including the borrower affidavit, they're going to submit everything to us. They're going to draw the docs on your regular loan. They're going to send me the deed of trust on your construction type loan. And then pretty much you're going to sign those docs, and then they're going to fund, we're going to fund, or we're going to fund, they're going to fund. Like all that's going to happen at the same time. And then your project will be fully funded, and then you'll be off and running on whatever phase. Like some lenders have it structured to where the first draw could be, and this is kind of how we designed it, that the first draw could be your permits. So if you haven't done the permits yet, maybe your first draw on the construction loan is the permits. Or if you're already past that phase, maybe the first draw is, your foundation. It's whatever stage you're in. But the money's already all together and waiting.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And so draw docs is like the day where you like sign something and pay a bunch of mortgage origination fees and stuff like that.
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, that's the day I'm referring to, is the lenders actually drawing up those loan documents and getting them to the title company for the borrower to sign. Yes.
Okay. And so like everything kind of happens very similar time frame around then, and you could start doing work before that out of pocket, or you could wait until you get that before you start doing work. Right. And then you're kind of eating into the draw period. Like you might, right. You might take longer.
Right. One thing I do want to make clear is, if you, in that scenario where you've already come out of pocket for your permit fees, just please keep in mind that the grant will not reimburse that cash back into your pocket. So say I'm out I paid $10,000 for my permit fees. Here's my receipt. That's great. And the grant can be used towards that, but it would be a principal reduction to your mortgage, to the renovation loan. It cannot be a direct reimbursement back to the consumer.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows.
Yeah. I'm just going to say that
going
back
into the consumer's pocket.
Right. So that I make sure I understand. So it's like, I spend $5,000 on permit stuff, soft costs. I don't know.
Yep.
Before getting the grant come through. I keep all the receipts very diligently. And when I give those to the lender and they send them along to say, yep, the $5,000 were already realized costs before you ever reserve the grant. You send through, you authorize that, but the lender doesn't just give me $5,000. The lender uses that $5,000 to pay down some of my principal.
Yes.
And that's like a rule. That's a
rule, hard and fast rule. The money will never hit the consumer's pocket. Not to be hardcore,
but at the same time, it's buying down my principal. So like that's what.
Yeah. So really, in a perfect world, my advice would be, keep that in your back pocket in case you need it. But really doing the $160,000-$40,000 example I was talking about better is really best for the consumer, because their payment on that is going to be on the 160, right? If they're doing 5,000 or 10,000, whatever it is, as a principal reduction, their payment, yes, they owe less on their principal, but their payment is based on the higher amount. Yeah. So if you're really if you're really looking at the math behind that, it's a little bit more affordable for the consumer to come up with the other cost, not come up with as in out of pocket, but I mean, itemize those other costs that are also eligible under the $40,000, to be used with the grant.
Makes sense. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Good clarification. Yeah. Okay, you said something a little scary in that because you alluded to this affidavit, and actually it's not very scary. Like it's what this has is the owner occupancy statement. That's like, I live here. It's got what else even is?
I'm only building one.
Yeah,
I would have to go back and look, but it's pretty straightforward. It's basically, I swear my income is this, like it's
Yeah.
It's the I swear form. I swear everything that we've talked about when it comes to the rules of the program.
I'll put a link in the description below. It doesn't have anything gotcha. The things people always ask are like, so do I have to rent this to a certain type of person or a certain income or a certain rate? Do you get to choose the renter?
You get to choose the renter. There are no restrictions on what it could be for your mom or your grandma. It can be for you to rent out. It can be, it just can't be a short-term rental, and it can't be, that's it. It just can't be a short-term rental. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really important. Like, I think a lot of people see government grants, and they some of the more successful pilots of government grant programs for ADUs did come with 6 strings. And this one, I think, has a fair amount of upfront like obstacles, like the lending process. But then once you get it, it's it's dispersed the way we've described in this video.
Right.
And the ADU is your ADU.
Right. There is one thing though, I want to make sure all of your listeners do understand, is that this is a gift from the state of California. I shouldn't have giggled. Sorry. This is a gift from the state of California. So it is, you will get a 1099 on it. So you definitely want to entertain or just do your research on what that means for you tax-wise.
So that's on the list. You've perfectly segued into the sort of speed round.
Yeah.
There are tax implications to getting $40,000 from the government. So that's a thing. Talk to a tax advisor.
Yep. Exactly.
I guess one of the things that some of these speed round questions are a little philosophical. So you can bunt them, you can take them, you can say, I don't know. What is the philosophy behind having the owner occupancy requirement? Is that something in CalHFA's DNA? Can you talk a bit about that?
It's a great way to put it. Actually, it really is. I think in CalHFA's DNA, and our thought process with this program is to not help the landlord section of our population. And I'll say yet, not that they shouldn't be helped with this. But this is for the owner occupant, for their family, right? So it is that, I know it sounds kind of, it's that warm and fuzzy, right? That it really is, at least to me, I don't know, maybe that's why I've been in public service for so many years, but it is to help the owner of the property. So it's a little bit more, I believe it's a little bit more grassroots. It's our idea behind this is to help, elderly age in place. Like that could be a huge use of the ADU, and it can go either way. Either, you move grandma in so you can care for her, or maybe, grandma owns the property and has limited income. So then you can either rent it so grandma has more income so that she can still afford to live in that house that she's in her whole life. Or you can flip it and grandma can move into the ADU, and then, she can rent out the big house, or she have family in the big house taking care of her. So there's just allowing elderly folks or fixed income folks to age in place, I think is huge. And just our lower income population to allow this as another income source just for the ADU. And I know I'm getting into that gray line, right? Where I said, well, it's not for a landlord, but it could be for you to start that journey, right? It could be the beginning, because you could own that house, build the ADU, and you really could rent that out. And we just really feel that an ADU, if you just leave all the restrictions off, right? You just leave all the restrictions, it is naturally occurring affordable housing. Period. So, and that's what we're trying to do.
Amen. Amen.
It's so easy to argue with you, Ryan, because you agree.
I love it. Yeah, I just agree. Especially when states just giving money back to people, I'm like, yeah, I'm a very agreeable person on these interviews.
You're a fan. I love it.
the pre-development costs, you've talked about why it's restricted to that, but just to explain it in a little bit more detail, if CalHFA gave grants that covered construction costs, there's some kind of state rule that would trigger prevailing wages. So like the cost of labor would go up on the whole project.
Exactly. Yep. It would trigger prevailing wage So the cost of the labor would be increased, and we're trying to keep it as affordable as possible.
Okay. And do you know what rule that is, or it's like, okay, yeah, it's all right.
I don't, sorry.
All right. That's
Something
interesting.
old school.
Yep. Hey, yep. That's all right. Pass.
Yeah.
I think one of my other philosophical questions that I've been getting a lot from people, because it's fun, housing is beyond partisan. So I get people who are like, why is this going to, why aren't you giving it to everybody? Why isn't it universal? I also get the other one where it's like, why is the income limit so generous?
Right.
And so I guess knowing that there's no right answer, you're going to make somebody up. Like, what is the philosophy behind means testing and at all? And then why so generous with the limit?
So we have to have a limit, because if we because it's not a never ending source of funds. So this is a specific source of funds. A little bit of it was from CalHFA. We had it was only a fraction of the whole amount, but we were working on an ADU program because we felt that it was necessary and it was a good thing to do. So we had this much money. And then and I'm sorry, it's either one of the ABs, it's either a Senate bill number, or it could have been from one of the federal packages, actually. I don't remember, so I apologize. But then we got another bigger chunk. And because we were already working on our little chunk, we just put it all together, and here we are. So we have a decent funding source, but that's not never ending. If we open it up to anybody and everybody, it would be gone in a splash. So we are trying to help a specific population, low to moderate income. We are tracking the regions of the state so that we can see, and it is very heavily so far in some of these more hard to reach places, which we're super thrilled about. I know, super exciting. But we didn't put, again, we tried to make this as organic as possible with as few restrictions on it as possible, because we want it to work and we want it to work well. Yeah. So the cool thing about this is that it's organically happening the way it should be happening, right? We are helping low to moderate income homeowners. We are helping, we are helping hard to reach areas. And what else? Shoot, heard the phone ring and lost my train of thought. But
no, you're prioritizing the funds, right?
Yes,
it's not going to everybody right out the gate, because whenever it's open to everybody, literally the people who need it the least have the best means to access it the fastest.
Right.
That's how
perfect
that works. Yep. So prioritizing it a tiny bit,
right?
But then not prioritizing.
And then generous. Sorry, and then so I did. That's the second half of that question, right? Why are we so generous? Still, even though some of you might be looking at $216,000 in Napa County, might be thinking, holy smokes. But the reality of it is, go search the median price home in Napa County, and your $216,000 borrower can't buy your median home price in Napa in many, many cases. So although it is generous in the fact that a lot of people hover around that 60-80% AMI, and we're at 150, we still think, because housing is so unaffordable here, that that's what we're hanging our hat on, the fact that that these folks still need this help.
Mm-hmm. And then data wise, from what I gather, you ran for 3-4 months with stricter income limits, and you got one grant reservation in the state.
We did. Yeah.
And so that's two in my
I still think we would have done more. That was more, I believe, but you're right, your data is correct, but I believe that was more about the ramp up of the program than the limits themselves. I feel like by opening it up to the CalHFA, our typical limits, it took a lot of the confusion out of it. So a lot of that was just lenders understanding. There were still a lot of people that could use the program, I think, because of we had 3 different tiers. It was just very again, we were trying to be all encompassing and we kind of muddied the waters a little bit. So the fact that we could say low to moderate and keep it, and keep it there and help more people, we still have a good amount of people in that low income category. So that's, of course, the good side.
That's a great point.
Well.
Yeah, that kind of proves it, right? And that what you're saying, it's just one of the variables, because you fix like 3 or 4 parts at once. You were like, let's increase the amount of the grant, which makes it much more worthwhile.
Right.
If you know that you can use all 40, it's like that's almost twice as much.
Right.
You opened up the eligibility from income.
Right.
You added lenders at the same time and trained and rolled out the message. So like, I get that it's not a vacuum, but okay, that helps understand it. And then like you've alluded to something very important earlier in the interview, which is that some of the lenders are releasing products that take a second position that won't mess up, that won't force you to refinance your primary and jeopardize a potentially really record low interest rate that you might have gotten in the past couple of years.
Right.
If this video that I'm going to put up on the screen goes into the details about that specific lending product. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Molly. This has been amazing. I finally understand this thing, and I can't wait to do more breaking news. Anytime you got breaking news.
Right.